This conference will now be recorded.
Holly, could you please call roll?
Yes. Wendy Hess.
Wendy Hess, present from Woodbury County, representing communication centers.
Travis Solom.
Present, Warren County, also representing Communication Center.
Bridget Edson.
Present, Chickasaw County EMS, representing EMS.
Mindy Benson. I don't think she's gonna be on. Are you on, Mindy? Michelle Bishop.
Present, representing Iowa Pro Chiefs.
Curtis Wilton.
Present, representing volunteer fire departments.
Stephen Ness.
Here, Des Moines Police, representing municipal police.
Dan Schaefer. Dan Fank. Jeff Vanderwater.
Present, representing Iowa Sheriffs.
This is Dan Schaefer. Did you get me?
Okay, I got you, Dan.
All right. Thank you.
Rhonda Broaddus.
President, Marshall County, member at large.
Anna Voss.
Present, representing the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy.
Cindy Hike.
President, representing Iowa Health and Human Services.
Daniel Brown.
Present, Department of Management, representing Department of Transportation.
And Michael Strausser won't be here. Keith Hove.
Present, Iowa Department of Public Safety.
Patrick Updike.
Patrick Updike, Iowa Department of Corrections.
Blake Jerushi.
Present, representing Iowa Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management.
Jessica Turba.
Present, representing the Iowa Department of Management, Chief Information Officer.
Okay, and we do have a quorum. Did we lose you?
No, I need to turn off my mute.
Oh.
Sorry about that. Thank you all for joining today, and we'll get through our meeting as expeditiously as we possibly can. I'll entertain a motion to approve today's agenda.
Brought it.
I have a motion.
I'll
Second.
Second. So
All those in favor of approving today's agenda signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the meeting minutes from our March 14th meeting.
Ness moves.
I have a motion and a second.
Almost second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That brings us to the SWIC report and SWIC Nichols.
Thank you, Chair Bishop. So I'll run through this pretty quick. Outreach efforts are ongoing always. Recently, we conducted Isicsb coverage testing in southern Iowa in Wayne County. Actually, we're kind of surprised at the positive results with portable radios. And then we presented on Isicsb down in Louisa County, whose neighbors are predominantly adopting Isicsb. Then the deputy SWIC took his Yagi antenna to the National Weather Office in La Crosse, Wisconsin recently, and that was able to reach back to Isicsb with better than expected results. So they will work to procure equipment to work on Isicsb, and then hopefully begin discussions to create some best practice with emergency management and communication centers. update on the REM CDP grant is just that good progress continues with outreach, planning, and procurement, outreach to hospitals and EMS agencies in Region 1. A reminder to the group that there are still 2 standards out for public comment through the 14th of this month. So those are 1.5.1 for transport and travel standard and 2.11.0, the training Isicsb user standard. We have received no public comment at this time for those. We are in the process of planning a communications exercise in Story County. We have a robust list of interested participants already. So just to let you know, that's filling up fast. If you have interest in a COMEX, but you're unable to attend that June 18th through 20 event, there is the Central States in Joplin, Missouri, and also Wisconsin is holding a fall event that they have graciously opened to Iowa individuals. And if you're interested in either of those, reach out to me. I believe ECC Myers will mention those in his report also. Cyber Resilience CR 911 Symposium is in May in Kansas City. I will be attending that. I attended a webinar this week by Mission Critical Partners on safeguarding mission critical public safety infrastructure, including LMR systems from cybersecurity threats, which I found very valuable. I will continue to seek opportunities for this type of education. I think it's very important. Again, Chris is going to talk about some of that on his report, as he often does. There was reported in that webinar public safety LMR network that was compromised in another state recently that they discussed. And so I think that's very important for us as a board and a technology committee to review and keep abreast of. And so this is interesting to me, and I will continue to look for opportunities to learn more about that. And finally, it is Telecommunicator Month. Next week is Telecommunications Week. So for those in that dedicated profession, thank you for your service and sacrifice. I have nothing else. If there's any questions for me, I'll take them now.
Great. Thank you, SWIC Nichols. Are there any questions for the SWIC? (911) 911 Council Report, Blake DeRushi.
Thank you. I would echo the comments on National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week. I know that APCO, NINA, and NASNA will all be cranking out some good content on social media next week. So make sure you're following those and sharing those. And again, just thank you for everything that you do. The 911 Council met just before the board meeting today. There was a substantial amount of discussion on legislation and surcharge. So if you're interested in those topics as it relates to 911, we'll get the video posted on YouTube here today yet, and I would encourage you to go back and just take a look or review those items. A couple updates as it relates to the board. We now have the capability of transferring text to 911 messages across state borders. So we've been able to transfer text to 911 within the state for a number of years. Using the same methodology, we can actually now transfer those texts to neighbors across the border in every state except Wisconsin at this point. So notice went out to those PSAPs that are border PSAPs a couple weeks ago. So again, just making you all aware of where we're at with that. As Haley said, I will also be attending the Cyber Resilient 911 Symposium. That is an initiative through CISA. Will be also accompanied by Chief Information Officer of the ICN, as well as a couple folks from Scott County. If you remember, they undertook the cyber assessment through CISA, so thought they would be very useful in attending that as well. Finally, the council did approve 9 months worth of online training for all PSAPs, all telecommunicators in the state. That is through the training fund that we are able to have. So with basically end of year, wanted to make sure that we used the entire allotment of training funds. We approved 9 months of that. So additional information will be being sent out in the upcoming days on how you are able to access that training site. But very excited for 9 months of training that we can offer all telecommunicators. With that, that is the end of my brief. I would take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Program Manager Darushi. Are there
Thank
any
you.
questions for Blake? User Group Committee, Chair Hess.
Good morning. The user group committee met on March 21st. Basically reviewed applications, and then we also had a discussion on the review and revisions to standard 2.9.0, which is the standard regarding requesting participation by non-public safety and non-public service organizations. So starting the process of making some changes to that, and you'll see more coming on that later. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate your report. Are there any questions for Chair Hess in the User Group Committee? Finance Committee, Chair Brown.
Thank you, Chair Bischoff. Finance Committee met on Tuesday, April 9th, and we did a review of our normal monthly expenses. Pretty close to the same amount as March or February. Very regular and usual month. Nothing there to note.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the Finance Committee? That brings us to governance and Chair Ness.
Thank you, Chair. We reviewed 3 policies, none of which needed significant changes, but one had a little more red line, although it wasn't terribly consequential. That one is under a new business, which will be addressed later. And Haley, I'm not positive if I'll still be on. I've got to jump off at about 5 till 11. So that policy is 2.2.0. Again, under new business, maintenance of alias list. The other 2 that we were able to just take action on our own because they either required no changes or just a word here and there. Those policies reviewed were the Isicsb policy naming convention. Not a surprise that this didn't require much for updates because it was just approved months ago at the end of 2023. And then the other policy that we approved very minor changes to was 3.2.0 talk group and multi-group names. So I think we were authorized to make those changes. The single policy that had a little more redlining to it, again, not terribly consequential. 2.2.0 is on the agenda for new business later. Any questions? Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Any questions for the Governance Committee and Chair Ness? Operations Committee, Chair Edson.
Sure. Later in the meeting, we'll be bringing forward the plain language standard 1.3.0. There's been minimal changes to that. We also have the transport policy out for review right now. And then the new standard that we're working on is bidirectional amplifiers. I think that's just in a draft form, and we're starting to have that conversation because we know that equipment is out there and trying to figure out how to track it and what standards should go with that. And then that would be the end of my report.
All right, thank you, Bridget. Are there any questions for the Operations Committee and Chair Edson? Training and Outreach Committee, Chair Solom.
Thank you, Chair Bischoff. We met on the 28th.
We did the final verbiage changes to the status board module that's been updated. We also went over a radio basics white paper. I'd like to thank Liam and Gabe for putting that all together. We're going to work on putting that to a white paper template, and once we get that finalized, that will be uploaded as well. We also briefly went over affiliation and scanning, as well as Isicsb communication patching, and that was just an initial review. Once we get that finalized as well, that will also get added to the website, and that's all I've got, unless there's any questions.
Great, thank you, Travis. Appreciate the report. Are there any questions for Training and Outreach Committee? That brings us to the Technology Committee and Chair Updike.
Good morning, thanks. Technology just met on April 2nd, and this is a pretty light report, by the way. We continue to work on standard 3.11.0, which addresses talk group site access and roaming. So we kind of slowed down a little bit because it's gotten deep in discussion. So we're going to continue working on it and progress as we may. So that's all I have for you today.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate the report. Are there any questions for the Technology Committee and Chair Updike? That brings us to the FirstNet Broadband Subcommittee and Chair Benson.
This is Haley. She's not on today as far as I know. They met on this week on Tuesday. There were no actionable items. She just reminded that anybody's interested in meeting, the next meeting is May 14th at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for the FirstNet Broadband Subcommittee? That brings us to other reports and information sharing among board members. Do any board members have information that they would like to share with the rest of the board? I just have one update to share, and I did send an email out this morning regarding it as well. It's an update regarding the legislation in the Senate and the House on the board restructuring. The Senate file that restructures the board has passed the Senate and has moved to the House. Our section of that bill has not been amended. So the bill stands as it did back a few months ago when it came out of committee. The bill would take our board from the 19 members that it is today to 7. So we'll see what happens in the House, and when I see action on that, I will be sure to pass that along. But that's where that bill sits regarding the board restructuring. Are there any questions on the board restructuring bill? And does anyone have anything else they'd like to share? We'll move on then to the Isicsb System Administrator Report. Scott Richardson or Connie Stuffelme?
Thank you, Scott Richardson here.
Thanks, Scott.
Short update. Hey, short update this month. The 2024 RF maintenance has begun. We've had 3 Isicsb sites and 4 local sites completed so far. More sites to follow, and I will send out maintenance notifications on any upcoming sites. HVAC and generator maintenance has also begun. Several sites have been done already, but I don't have an exact count on those. And Aviat, our microwave vendor, is going to be replacing 2 ODUs on the Shelby to Atlantic microwave line. And other than those maintenance notes, our Isicsb numbers for March of 2024, radios stand at 37,058. Talk groups are at 3,252, and our push-to-talks last month were 2.7 million. And that equals to about 3,800 hours of talk time for the month of March. And with that, that completes my report.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Are there any questions for our system administrators? That brings us to the FirstNet Authority and Tom Lampe. Tom?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Just a few things. First of all, the authority's working on since the last outage a month ago or so, we're working on a better communication strategy, a notification system for outages to the states. We realize that we need to do a little better job on what I call, or we call, as immediate notification system when significant outages occur like this. So it's work in progress. As you know, you learn from everything when something happens. So that's one thing we need to improve on. So we're working on what type of system we want to get to notify the states when outages do occur and when the next one will occur, because there will be outages no matter what kind of network you have at some point. Just a reminder, the 5x5 conference in Charlotte, June 25th through the 27th, is where we show off all the technology that FirstNet has. And it's available to you. I have panelists selected for a IACP technical conference, and that is for Sheriff Sandholt will be on the panel, as well as a representative from Kansas, and myself will be the moderator. And that panel, one of the many panels, is LTE LMR technology and interoperability between the two systems will be discussed in that outbreak session. That's complimentary travel on FirstNet Authority's dime. We're also working on national interoperability talk groups on FirstNet, starting with national talk groups, regional talk groups, and then allow the states to develop their own talk groups as it gets down to that far. We're working with the national SWICs who had developed those already, and we're taking some of their ideas, working with CISA now as well to come up with a plan. There are several routes that we have to take to do this. It won't be fast, but we feel we need to get ahead of them and establish them as quick as we can here. The eclipse of the network went great. The FirstNet Authority had been band 14. We had no reports of congestion on FirstNet, but we did prepare ahead of time. We had Colts in the area, and then continually watched the network as everybody was streaming and using the network during that eclipse in those heavy congested areas. The bridge collapse, we were there within hours and assisted with deployables and devices during that time. They were very appreciative of our assistance there. I do have 3 spots open for complimentary FirstNet dime travel to the lab in Boulder. I know some have already went, but I plan on taking 3, and I'd like to get a rep from each of my states. So if you have any suggestions, you can let me know. And that's my report for you.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Are there any questions for the FirstNet Authority? We'll move on then to AT&T and Tyler Richard.
I know he's in training unless he's jumped on.
Oh, okay. Is there anyone on the line representing AT&T? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to CISA and Chris Myers.
Thank you, Chair Bischoff. Good morning, board. And to start off with, I do want to mention, as Haley mentioned before, that April is Emergency Communications Month. The theme for this Emergency Communications Month is Resilient Together. And part of my brief will highlight some things that may be attempts by foreign actors to hinder that resiliency, but public safety has a lot of resources at its disposal to combat that. Special focus this month, of course, is National Public Telecommunicators Week, which is the second full week of April. The way April is structured this month, that's why it seems like it's late, is because we had April 1st being on a Monday, which little strange, but that does happen. So National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week starts next week. I want to thank all the telecommunicators out there that do a very important job every day to make sure that everything in public safety rolls well. Another special focus is on highlighting the importance of secure, interoperable emergency communications. Quick update for the board as well as some ongoing projects, primarily the SCIP on the next slide. The follow-up meeting with 911 alerts and warnings has been completed within Iowa. We are working to incorporate suggested edits and verbiage into those sections covering those two components of the emergency communications ecosystem in Iowa. The draft is undergoing review and will hopefully be ready soon for state level review. We have several internal quality control checks that we do to make sure that nothing is offline or off base when that report is given to you all. Now, into some highlights from the recent International Wireless Communications Expo down in Orlando. We had a lot of presentations on the next slide that kind of outlined things related to cybersecurity. One of the findings that was shared with the group is that many public safety personnel need additional cyber training. Part of this is because there has been an established business model of cybersecurity shortcomings within the public safety systems that we have, to the tune that it could cost around $265 billion a year by the end of 2031. That's an increase of 40%. So if you think about why people are doing these types of things to government entities, there's an established business model now with the ransomware as a service groups. Over the last 2 years, we've had 277 incidents that hit public safety agencies in 41 states and the District of Columbia. So this is a very pervasive issue. One of the things that has popped up recently as well is that the computers that are always on in public safety environments make an ideal crypto mining target. If you've never heard of crypto mining, that is where someone will hijack a small part of your system and use it as a part of a larger operation to mine for things such as Bitcoin or other types of cryptocurrencies. When it comes to compromises, phishing accounts for 90% of breaches, which gets back into the training component for public safety personnel. Now, of those that are hacked and those that do get injected with ransomware, only 8% of businesses that paid a ransom got all of their data back. Now, even though they got it back, that is no declaration that the data is in its state that it was before the compromise. So there's always a lot of caveat emptor that comes with that. And of course, 79% of nation-state attackers are targeting government agencies because of their key and critical functions within our society. And for law enforcement specifically, cybercrime directed at them has increased by 28% since statistics were being kept. So there's a huge increase. So cybersecurity concerns within public safety are very, very prominent and also are getting very, very expensive. On the next slide, it was also noted with the groups during the presentations that not every attack can be prevented. Organizations that are attacked and do have a developed and exercised response plan, though, have saved an average of $1.5 per breach approximately. And when it comes to those response plans, you do want to keep things simple and keep them relevant, and of course play out scenarios that you may need to think about for any type of response. Think of the if someone does this to us, then what should we do, or what would happen then? Keep your leadership and involved and prepared, and leadership in this case does include legal. If you think about actions you may need to take during any type of response, legal is a good group to have in the loop because they will tell you what you can and cannot do, both under normal operations and emergency operations. And the resolving theme was prepare for the when and not necessarily the if. Some other things that came out of IWC on the next slide related to Iowa and other radio system owners specifically were updates to P25 standards. Some of these that are highlighted here include improved functionality of end-to-end key sharing within the key management of facilities that Iowa has, also known as the KMF. That is in work. There's also work for a remote activated emergency alarm on a radio in case the user is unable to self-activate. Think in terms of when a person in a scenario may lose consciousness. There's also work to standardize over-the-air alias transmission as opposed to a numerical ID. You may see some text that is stored in the system that is more representative of the user, as an example, TPS 925, which would tell you the agency and ID of that person that has that radio. That standard is published in Phase 1, FDMA, but it is still pending in Phase 2, TDMA. There's also been some work to streamline location data, and that work includes embedding that data inside of the voice transmission. What that does is that allows for different ways to transmit the geolocation of units whenever they key the mic, so that someone at a console can see where their personnel are located. There's also been some updates to the way over-the-air rekeying is done at a system level. Previously, CBC MAC was some of the behind-the-scenes ciphering that was used to keep system messages secure. They have moved now to CM MAC, which is much more secure and offers some type of cryptology that is much, much harder for an adversary to compromise. There's been some more updates as well to key fill devices. Think of your devices that you plug directly into radios to inject key material. This includes capabilities for sharing, which would include multiple types of interfaces. Think your USB. Think of other types of interfaces to move key material in a secure fashion. Link layer encryption, which would encrypt the control channel. They've made some progress on that, but that is still in work. And they're also working on clarifying KMF to KMF key sharing. So think of your large systems that may border each other. If there's a need to share keys in a secure environment, they are working on clarifying that key sharing. This is making its way to product as of now, and they are working on making sure that all the little nuances that go into making those things fly work as desired. And there's continued development of LMR to LTE standards. So the P25 landscape has been very busy. If you look back at what they've done over 30 years, they've accomplished quite a bit. Finally, some regional news of note. We do have a national meeting of alerting officials coming up at the end of April and going into the 1st of May in Kansas City. This would be for your alerts and warnings personnel. You've heard some talk about the Cyber Resilient 911 Symposium and some of the communications exercises. The big one, that'll be in Joplin and Quapaw, the Central States Association. Kansas is also putting on a state-sponsored communications exercise the week of June 11th. Other state interoperability boards and councils that are meeting, we do have the meeting of the State Interoperability Council in Kansas on May 9th, and the Kansas 911 Coordinating Council is meeting on April 19th. For those of you that are involved in our interoperability markers updates and meetings, notifications on those requests to get those updated will go out sometime in the July timeframe. No specific date has been set for those as of today. That is all I have, Chair Bischoff, for the group. I can go ahead and take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that very valuable update. Are there any questions for CISA and Chris Myers? That brings us to old business, of which we have none. Moving on to new business. We have new Isicsb user approval. I'll turn that over to Chair Hess.
Good morning. We have two applications in front of us for approval today. The first one is the Bramer County Sheriff's Office, which is an updated application to level 4, and the other is the Sioux County Sheriff's Office, which is level 3. So I will make a motion to approve those two applications.
So second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the new users as presented on the agenda indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you all. That brings us to item B under new business, adopting Isicsb Standard 1.3.0 plain language. Chair Edson, would you like to introduce this update?
Sure. We've reviewed the standard and there's been relatively minor updates, nothing major, and we think that it's ready to be adopted. So I'll make that motion.
Great. I have a motion. Looking for a second.
Michael, second.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion regarding the standard? Hearing none, all those of adopting Isicsb Standard 1.3.0 plain language indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, adopt Isicsb Standard 2.5.0 network management. Chair Updike.
Thanks. This is one of 6 standards that we've been working on for 2024, and we're kind of in the same boat with this one as the previous standard. We just kind of made some minor revisions and brought it up to the 2024 speed. So I guess I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and approve this 2.5.0 network management.
Great. Is there a second?
Brought it second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of adopting ISIC Standard 2.5 Network Management as edited, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item D, adopt ISIC Standard 2.14.0 Security Equipment Sites. Chair Updike.
Same as before. Just made some changes to it. Some of it is obviously in the ISIC standard title, so you can see how marked up it is. So I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and approve standard 2.14.0 equipment site security.
And is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Adopt, that brings us to item E, adopt ISIC Standard 3.5.0, statewide area talk group access and management. Again, Chair Updike.
I should have spread this stuff out over the year. But once again, we reviewed this and marked it up, made some changes, brought it up to speed, and we feel like this is ready for prime time. So I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and adopt standard 3.5.0 statewide wide area talk group access and management.
Great. Is there a second?
Vogel, second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of adopting ISIC Standard 3.5.0 statewide wide area talk group access and management signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That brings us to item F, adopt ISIC Standard 2.2.0 maintenance of alias list. This is brought forward by the governance chair, Chair Ness. He had to leave, as indicated earlier in the meeting. Swick, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
Just similar, we've made some updates, and this is version 2 of the standard. If someone would like to make a motion.
Actually, Swick, you're unable. Someone needs to motion.
Right.
Vogel motion.
Okay, so I do. Okay,
Second.
perfect. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of adopting ISIC Standard 2.2.0 maintenance of alias lists, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That brings us to public comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the board? All right, hearing none. That brings us to adjournment. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Broadus.
Second.
Brown.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you all very much. Enjoy telecommunicator